We're back with a special episode, an in-person episode of Middle Class Rockstar with my buddy Adam Barraza. We met in college over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Well over a decade ago. That makes me feel old.
Yeah.
And we were in several classes together, but we were in a traditional jazz ensemble at CU Denver in Colorado called the Claim Jumpers. And, we would hang out before class every week. And you were in a band called Mr. Right. I was doing my singer-songwriter thing. And then you went on to become a lawyer. You went on to do a sensible job.
Yeah, I went on to be a lawyer, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I don't know how sensible it is, but...
So talk a little bit first how you decided to pursue music.
Yeah, I grew up playing piano. Well, I played piano for a few years, and then my older cousin played drums, and I pretty much did everything that he did. He's also a lawyer, coincidentally. But I'm an identical twin, so my brother's a guitar player, and we grew up playing in bands and hanging out with other people that played in bands, basically. That was just all we really wanted to do was play music together.
And at what point... Well, actually, first off, your influences. Like, what kind of, when I think about Mr. Right, I mean, what kind of stuff are you guys listening to?
Yeah, the idea was that we all just kind of did our own thing because we kind of came from different backgrounds a little bit. My brother, at least at that time, was listening to a lot of like acoustic kind of music and acoustic bands where the guitar was played on an acoustic guitar. And then I was listening to what I've always listened to, which is, pop punk, the Alkaline Trio and Blink-182 and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Drew was a huge Dave Matthews Band fan. That's what he was listening to in high school. Mr. Right was three people, me, my brother, and our best buddy since we're 4 years old. That's why we called it Mr. Right, because it was just the three of us doing whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we kind of came at it from three different angles, I suppose.
Yeah. And you guys did some really cool shows. You got to open for some artists that you really loved. You guys did a lot around in the Denver scene for a while. But then at some point, as what happens, you guys decided to part ways and pursue other things. How did that happen? How did the band break up? How did you all decide to go elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about this, and that's exactly what happened, what you just described. We were playing, for years after we graduated from UCD. And then, just at a certain point, people started thinking about maybe doing other things. And so the band just kind of ended. One night we just kind of met up and we just decided that there was no way that we could keep doing what we were doing. So then I was left to kind of decide what I wanted to do long term. And that's when I decided that I was going to go to law school. I guess I should mention that my route to being a lawyer goes all the way back to high school when I met an entertainment lawyer who was helping my friends. They signed a record deal, like a big record deal. And then he stayed on afterwards to help them with whatever they needed. And he would come to town. This is in northern Colorado. He would come to town periodically to hang out with them. And if they had a big show or something like that, he'd be in town for 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
And we'd get to hang out with him too, because he was, we were just kind of around.
Yeah.
And we get to pick his brain. And I remember the first time I met him, I thought, man, if I ever was not going to play drums, I want to do exactly what that guy does.
Wow.
And he, it didn't hurt that he was the coolest guy that any of us had ever met. So,
and loved music, clearly. Like, he was passionate about music too.
Yeah. And he was representing up and coming bands as well. So that's how I first met an entertainment lawyer. And then I went to UCD. While I was at UCD, I took law in the music industry as well, which was taught by an entertainment lawyer, Stan Sucher, who is still around. I mean, to this day, he's an authority on entertainment law.
Yeah.
He does speaking engagements. He's written a number of books. He's an amazing writer. He's an amazing teacher as well.
Wow.
So I took that class. That also kind of reinforced my interest. And then I graduated UCD in 2011. And over the next few years when we were doing Mr. Right, there were, I'm going to say, 2 occasions where we were given some type of written licensing agreement to sign.
Yeah.
And we did not feel comfortable signing that until we understood what we were agreeing to.
Right.
So we were lucky enough that we could call our buddy's lawyer and he helped us out. So that's kind of how I decided to eventually go to law school, is through my exposure to this guy, this entertainment lawyer, who not only helped my friends out, but he helped us out. And he was able to, we would give him these contracts that they might as well have been written in hieroglyphics for all we knew.
Right. They use big words like perpetuity and stuff.
Perpetuity. Yeah. Watch out for perpetuity, folks. But he would, we would give him these contracts and say, hey, what does this even mean? And he would translate the written contract and say, hey, this is what that means. That's what this means. This is fine. We're going to push back on this. But equally important, I think, and this is a huge part of my job, is he translated the whole situation.
Yeah.
The context in which that written agreement existed. That was super, super helpful for us.
Right.
So that's kind of how I got the idea to go to law school.
Now, you weren't able to go directly into entertainment law, right? I mean, it was, how does that work?
Yeah. So a law degree is a law degree, right? But when I was in law school, I guess I should maybe back up one more step. I figured I probably wanted to focus on entertainment law going into law school, right? That was kind of the idea. But I wanted to go to law school as a blank slate as much as possible. And I wanted to get exposed to as many different areas as I could. And then my plan was just to kind of gravitate wherever I naturally gravitated. But I remember a little nugget of wisdom given to us by, I think, probably Chris Daniels in Intro to Music Business. Speaking of amazing educators, Chris Daniels, shout out to him, was a band is just a small business, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a very, very small business, right? Maybe one person, but it's a small business nonetheless. So
Yeah.
there are any number of different areas of law that impact small businesses, right?
Yeah.
And entertainment law also, it's probably important to mention, is not a distinct practice area, right?
Right.
It encompasses all the areas of law that impact people and businesses that operate in the music industry. So that's how I approached law school. And when I graduated, I chose to focus on the foundational lawyering skills, and then also the areas of law that impact small businesses.
Yep.
And then over the years, as the opportunities have presented themselves to work with more artists, I just kind of fold that in, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it happens.
And where are you at now with what you want to do, what you're starting to do? How's things now?
Yeah, right now I'm doing a lot of litigation work, which is what I wanted to definitely have a foundation in litigation, and doing some contract negotiation as well. On the entertainment side, I'm just doing transactional work. I haven't done any like copyright infringement litigation or anything like that. I'm doing some trademark opposition. I'm handling a trademark opposition matter, but that's I wouldn't say common to my practice right now.
And would you explain the difference between litigation and transactional?
Yeah, definitely. Litigation is dispute resolution is how I'm defining it, because part of my practice is not necessarily, there's no lawsuit on file.
Okay.
Or not even on the horizon, so to speak. We're just trying to get something resolved without having to resort to someone filing a lawsuit.
Right.
So that's litigation. Transactions is any type of deal, right? Any licensing deal or any other transaction.
Okay.
In the music context, how I think I would define that is, this is anything from you playing a solo gig down at McGillicuddy's Bar and Grill. That's a deal. That's a transaction.
Yeah.
In the same way that you selling your entire catalog for $100 million to some private equity firm, that's also a transaction.
So if I was going to go play at McGillicuddy's or whatever you just said, and we needed to negotiate a rate, say for me to play a residency there. That would be transactional. But what if there was an issue of some sort while I was playing there? Maybe I got injured or I don't know. Does that then become litigation?
Could, yeah, but that's usually how when there's a dispute that has arisen, there's always a handoff between the transactional lawyer and the litigator.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the transactional lawyer will send the nice letter, the nasty letter, and then the litigator steps in, right?
Uh-huh.
So we call it...
and that's when like the Suits television show becomes relevant.
Yeah,
right? That's litigation.
Very relevant. No, they do. I mean, that show is very fluid with how they do litigation transactions. They're kind of all over the place. But yeah, there is a certain point at which the dispute seems like it's not going to get resolved amicably, or not amicably, but it's not going to get resolved as easily as anyone would hope. And that's usually when they get the litigator involved. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean the litigator's going to, I'm filing a lawsuit, or the other side's going to file a lawsuit. That's not necessarily the case. It's just the litigator's involved to say, hey, let's get this resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Usually that's, sometimes I will send the demand letter. The demand letter, well, there's different types of demand letters, obviously, but maybe there are three kind of letters. There's a nice letter. There's a, hey, you should really kind of figure this out. And then the demand letter is usually it ends with a or else. And usually you want the litigator to send the or else letter, because if you say or else we're going to file a lawsuit, you better be serious about it.
Yeah.
So that's usually how
that's not something you can toy around with.
No, because then nobody will take you seriously.
Right.
And that's just, unfortunately, the way that sometimes things have to be resolved. Unfortunately, that's why litigators have jobs, is because people sometimes can't get things resolved on their own.
So what's your ideal gig? If you got a phone call today to do some sort of law work for somebody, it could even be a specific band. What call would you like to get?
Yeah, sure. I'd be the general counsel for Alkaline Trio Incorporated. You know what I mean?
We'll tag him in the show notes.
Yeah, that's. I think that's. I was talking to an entertainment lawyer yesterday about his ideal gig, and the way he described it was quarterbacking, which is kind of what general counsels do, or in-house counsel for a company. They'll hire the outside firms to do the transactions or the litigation, but they're kind of overseeing everything. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to approach entertainment law. He has a project going right now with I'm going to call her an influencer, but maybe that's not doing her justice. And I don't think we've seen the last of her, but regardless, it's a huge project that just blew up recently.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of his role in that organization, so to speak, is he's put together that team of everybody working together for this one person, which I thought was really interesting. And I think I'm at the stage now where I'm happy where I'm at. I'm doing litigation and some transactions, and I like doing a little bit of both. Obviously, most of my work is litigation, because you can't really... Litigation, you got to be kind of all in. You can't just kind of dabble in litigation. You have to, if you're trying a case, you have to know every single thing.
If you're the or else guy, you got to be the or else guy.
You got to be the or else guy. You can't go into court and not know what you're doing. So that takes up the vast majority of my time. And then if and when the opportunities present themselves to work with artists and putting deals together, then I do that as well, which I really enjoy.